Hey, Pittsburgh. I don't know about you, but my perfect summer night includes a little art, a little music, and maybe browsing some cute vintage goodies. So I will be checking out the gallery crawl in the Cultural District. It's on Saturday, July 26th from 5:30 to 9 p.m., and it's all totally free. You can swing by new exhibitions at a couple art galleries and shop for gently used clothes and decor at a midsummer market in the backyard at 8th and Penn. There'll be food, there'll be drinks, there'll be live DJs, and if you're up for it, there's even an after party at Wood Street Galleries where Detour will be dropping a new LP. You can find out more about the crawl and snag a ticket to the after party at trustarts.org/crawl. Hey, CityCast listeners, do you love biking around Pittsburgh? The hills, the tight curves, seeing the city from a more intimate point of view? Well, do you like doing it with thousands of other cyclists all following cute, multicolored signage all over the burg? Then you should sign up for UPMC Health Plan Pedal Pittsburgh. It's Pittsburgh's biggest bike ride, and it all goes to support a fantastic local nonprofit, Bike Pittsburgh. The party kicks off Sunday, August 25th. You can choose from 4 different routes for all different fitness levels, from a low-key river loop to a full-on epic endurance challenge. It all ends with a festival in Allegheny Commons Park with food, drinks, DJs, and even a photo booth so you can capture your post-ride glow. Register now for Bike Pittsburgh's biggest fundraiser of the year at pedalpgh.org. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. Way back when, the name of our city, Pittsburgh, was chosen in honor of British Earl and Prime Minister William Pitt. I feel like most of us here in town know that. But how it was supposed to be spelled, with or without its beloved H, well, that is much more complicated. Historian and author Virginia Montanez is here to talk about how we got, lost, and eventually reclaimed the consistent use of our H, and why it has taken so long for everyone else to get it right. It's Monday, July 22nd. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Virginia, I feel like it's pretty common knowledge where Pittsburgh got its name. William Pitt, British Earl, Prime Minister. I don't know how we got the burg, though. Like, did other cities have that, the H? I'm thinking of like Sharpsburg, for example, or Saxonburg or Harrisburg.
Yes and no. Here's why yes and here's why no. It's very similar. You will find instances where Gettysburg has an H, where Sharpsburg has an H, where whatever, but it's all going to come down to who is actually spelling it. So at the same day, you might have one newspaper calling it Sharpsburg with an H, another with a G. I don't exactly know what their city charters would say, but it's just like you're just spelling it the way that your language, the way that you think it should be spelled. Very similar to Center RE. What's wild is in 1891, one of the newspapers pointed out, this I think will really illustrate, put people in the proper mindset of how to understand this. There were in Pittsburgh 2 brothers, a doctor and a lawyer, and their last name was Burley. And one of them spelled their last name with an L-E-Y, and one of them spelled it with an L-E-I-H.
Okay.
So this was how you want to view all of this. It was a matter of personal preference.
Personal preference, but also political ideology. You know, you write in your piece for Pittsburgh Magazine that different newspapers of the day sort of chose based on how conservative or how liberal they were, whether you use the H or not, H being more conservative. What about like official documentation? You know, you mentioned city charters. How did Pittsburgh's dictate our spelling?
Well, that's what's really interesting is we have documents that have both. We even have Pittsburgh City Council meetings, minutes, and I'm talking official minutes. Within the official minute book, it's spelled both ways. So, you know, we might have been incorporated with an H, and then that, like, as a city, it has an H, or as a borough, it might have an H, and then so it's just, this is why there was a debate for so long. People all had a document they could point to. They had a map. They had an official map. They had something that had their choice of spelling on it.
Yeah. I feel like in the modern era, like we take a lot of pride in our H. We're very particular about it. We want to make sure it's included. Did people, back at the inception of our city, in the mid 1700s, even into 1794 when we were incorporated as a city, did folks care? Did they just do what they wanted?
People always did what they want, but I will tell you, they did not care. The people that seem to care are the men of letters, the newspaper men, those people that want to paint themselves as intellectuals. Those people may have started caring, I would say late in the 1800s, like 1870s. But essentially, no, Pittsburghers did not really care. Again, they just picked the one that worked with who they were.
It wasn't a big point of pride in the way that it is today.
Not initially, not when it was taken away. It was not a point of pride when it was, and I'm putting that in quotes, taken away, because I will argue it was not taken away.
Well, yeah. So tell us about that. What I feel like we've all heard this legend, right? Of Pittsburgh was spelled with a GH from time immemorial, and then someone took our H away. Tell us the myth first, and then tell us the real story.
The thing is, as a historian, I believed the myth, and that's why I can speak to this and say, I get it, Pittsburgh. I know what you've been told. What you've been told is we lost it. We didn't lose it. What happened is the Board on Geographic Names was formed essentially because there were all of these things. This wasn't just about GH towns. There were a lot of different proper names where this was kind of an issue. And so the federal government is like, for our maps, for our purpose, as trains are coming and we need timetables and federalized transportation, we have got to decide how we are going to spell things on our maps. So they form this, and they essentially say in 1891, okay, these are the rules that we're going to follow. They never said, this is what you have to do. This is what your city needs to do. You need to change it. So nothing changed in Pittsburgh at all when that ruling came down. If you were spelling it with a GH, you continued to. If you're spelling it with a G, you continue to.
That's so different than the narrative all of us have been fed, which is that the big bad federal government came in and they took away your H. They stole it.
Took it. Like stole it away in the night, and everything changed overnight and people were in an uproar. That's the myth. None of it is true. But I believe the myth, and I started the research because I wanted to prove the myth. I went in with that bias and I couldn't find anything that proved it.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. The best way to learn a language is immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. That's how I learned French as a kid. But if that's not in the cards for you this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. I live in a city with a huge immigrant population. You probably do too. And in my hometown, a lot of my new neighbors speak Spanish as a first language, and we have lots of great Mexican and Central American and South American restaurants and stores. I wanted to be able to communicate just a little bit better with some of my neighbors. So I started with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. And after just a few extremely enjoyable weeks learning Spanish with Babbel, I've already gotten comfortable ordering at a restaurant and eavesdropping on my girlfriend's conversations with her mom. Look, learning a language isn't always easy, but with Babbel it is fun and it feels useful, basically immediately. That's why Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
The YWCA Greater Pittsburgh Equity Awards seeks to honor leaders, especially women of color, who advocate for and advance the organization's mission of eliminating racism and empowering women. Equity Awards nominations are open now through July 31st. Learn more about award categories and submit a nomination at ywcapgh.org/equity-awards. Awardees will be honored on Friday, November 1st, during the Equity Awards luncheon held at the Westin Pittsburgh. Founded in 1867, YWCA Greater Pittsburgh is a member of a nationally recognized movement with a mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. The nonprofit provides direct services, empowerment programming, and advocacy to support individuals and families, especially women and girls of color, while working to challenge structural barriers to equity. Don't miss your chance to submit Equity Awards nominations now at ywcapgh.org/equity-awards to honor a leader in our community. Do yins ever have a mild panic over everyone who has access to your personal information? You know, your social security number, your address, your health and financial records. So much important data. Like, I'm not trying to live off the grid, but still, does everyone need my mother's maiden name? Every day, data brokers collect and sell this information to third parties, and then that gets used by scammers, by strangers, even by insurance companies and banks to target you. My strategy has mostly just been to live in denial and pretend that this isn't happening, but then I learned about Incogni. That's INCOGNI. It scrubs your personal information from the web, and it is very simple to use. It only takes 3 minutes to set up, and it tackles more than 180 data brokers and people search sites. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you want to stop stressing about random scammers getting their hands on all of your personal data, sign up for Incogni today. You can use code CITYCAST, that's all one word, for 55% off the annual plan at incogni.com. That's INCOGNI.com. I want to read one passage that you found. It was a Pittsburgher in a letter to the editor of the Pittsburgh Press, that would be Pittsburgh without the H at the time, who declared that the H spelling was passé and wears the whiskers of time. You collected so many interesting thoughts from folks over the years. I wonder if you might be willing to share a few of them.
Yes, I did find several, and you're going to hear me flipping through some papers here so I can find the ones that I printed out for you.
Virginia, would not be a conversation with you if you didn't have a binder or a pack of papers or something to fuss with while we talked.
I do thorough research, so I always have.
And we love you for it.
Yeah, I always have a collection. So as I went through I shared some in the column, but the ones that I did not share in the column, the Pittsburgh Dispatch, so this is local, keep in mind, the Pittsburgh Dispatch, Nellie Bly wrote for them. They hated the H forever and ever and ever. The Pittsburgh Dispatch refused to use the H. And they wrote in May of 1891, when we, quote unquote, lost the H, quote, everybody knows that the municipal name of the city has been Pittsburgh, with a G, all along, and only the blunder of some long-forgotten postal official has ever caused the name to be spelled otherwise. End quote.
Said with confidence.
Right. So, everyone speaks with their whole chest with this. Whether it's, yes, I never found anyone that was like, we're not sure. It was always like, we know it's in blood somewhere how you should spell the city. Let me see. I want to find another one. So the Pittsburgh Daily Post in December of 1902. So here we are. It's 10, 11 years after we've lost the H. And they have an H. And later on, they have an H. But at this point, they do not. And they say, we shall quit bothering about how to spell Korea until some newspapers in this town learn to spell Pittsburgh. And again, they were against the H at this point. This is 1902. We're supposed to be in this uproar that we lost the H, and here it's 1902, and we have a newspaper saying, like, it's wrong. We never should have had the H to begin with. So
it sounds to me like at that point, they were probably just tired of the fight.
Yeah, they definitely, yes, those literary people and those men of letters and those, journalists and intellectuals continued the fight, but it was more of a slow burn shift toward this popular opinion that we like the H. It's nostalgic. It's a callback to our Scottish roots, our old-timey roots, and we're still that way today. So it makes sense that as time goes on, over these 20 years, when we near like 1905, that's when things are like, okay, there's more people in Pittsburgh that want that H back, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, we lose the H. It's gone. It's selected for us, I guess, in some small way. Does mayhem reign? Do H's fall from the sky or from signs everywhere in town? Did we even have a lot of sign work at that point? What happened?
We did have sign work. No one changed anything. Well, that's just the fact of the matter. It's not until well after this return of it in 1911, as things become more gradually shifting toward the H, that you'll see those things. No one changed their name overnight. No one changed their sign. No one changed their business cards or their letterheads or their billheads. And that's the big point here is we never lost it.
I mean, according to the U.S. government, it was gone for, say, 20 years. Who officially decided that it was Pittsburgh with an H again? Was that an us decision, or did the federal government just decide we don't care anymore, y'all do what you want?
So initially it was the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1905 that started the initial idea of, hey, let's bring back the H.
What an odd campaign to get yourself involved in.
Right. Well, they're the ones in charge of the timetables. So it does kind of make sense that the Pennsylvania Railroad, they were actually on the forefront of removing the H, and then they were actually on the front lines of bringing it back. Why? I can't be sure. But it was the Pennsylvania Railroad that initially in 1905 started a campaign to bring it back on their timetables and their maps. And then the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce picked up on it. And keep in mind that this is a time where Pittsburgh's identity is really being truly forged. We're getting our identity as an industrial powerhouse solidified. We're the steel capital of the world. So it makes sense that we're trying to set ourselves apart. And so what happens is the Chamber of Commerce starts this picks up the campaign, takes the ball and runs with it, and eventually convinces that same organization, that same board, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, to quote unquote return the H. Once again, nothing really changed overnight.
I feel like this entire thing is a narrative of Pittsburghers will call things what they want. They do not care what the official name is.
Yes, we know. Yes, that is exactly it. This is a perfect illustration that who we were is who we still are. Change the name all you want, but we're going to call it what we want, and we're going to spell it the way we want. It's always been this way.
Well, are there any spots in town, here still in the city or around it, where we can see Pittsburgh spelled without the H? I think the only one that I know of is maybe at the Pennsylvanian. You can see it in the brickwork and those big, gorgeous arches. But I'm wondering if any come to mind for you.
I can't think of any others really. But where I see that the H not being there mostly is in postcards and billheads and letterheads from the time. And the one thing you want to do is, if those are very easy to research, is look at the dates when you see those G's and look how they do not align at all with the official loss or the official return of the H. It's just not going to often line up. That's where I see it the most.
What about you today? Do you have strong feelings about the H, or, I don't know, any associations with it at this point?
The good thing about me right now is I have the hindsight of not having hindsight. We all do. We don't know what it was like to have chosen how to spell it. But based on who I am, I feel like I would have been like the Pittsburgh Dispatch. I would have been on the side of the Nellie Bly newspaper, which was like, it's a dumb letter, drop it next. I really think, weirdly, if I'm being honest with myself, I think I'm a G person and not a GH. Now I'm a GH person, obviously. I'm just saying, if this was me back then, I really think I would have been that person, it's a stupid letter, drop it.
We're really looking inward here. Maybe there's something we could all learn there, each of us deciding whether we too would have been a G person or a GH person way back when.
Right.
Well, Virginia, thank you so much. I feel like you always make us think about the world in unique and different ways, and often by looking backward. It's a really fun thing. Really appreciate all the work you're doing for us and for Pittsburgh Magazine.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you want to read more from Virginia's column, Dawn Memory Lane, in Pittsburgh Magazine, we'll have a link in our show notes. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon. Producer Sophia Lowe in the background here, popping in. Kenny Woods lost Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Plunge both dropped the H. That's important context. Kenny Woods honoring the old days, I guess.
But I remember being younger and believing that they misspelled it. And I was like, Mom, they spelled Pittsburgh wrong.
I'm sure generations of kids have said the same thing.